everyone, it's Greg Dwyer. I'm excited. We're going to talk about the topic of things being new. Now, if this sounds familiar, it's probably because it is. When we talked about the word diamond, there was a letter N in the word diamond, and we talked about focusing on new things. If you remember, I was wearing a white sweater, I was in my office, I had a bunch of books there, and I talked about for you to focus and make things happen, you really got to be focused on something new. So here we are talking about something new again in the word mind, M-I-N-D. So why am I talking about new things again? Well, you wouldn't tune a piano once and say, okay, I tuned the piano, never have to tune the piano again. It's a constant effort of coming back, readjusting, making changes, and moving forward. So today we're going to talk about something new, which I already talked about before in the past, which was old, but today is new because it's a new day. All right, so all kidding aside, I just got back from Florida. I was in Florida for 5 days just to get away. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It was wonderful, great. Spent time with my family, spent time with friends, and as I was getting closer to Friday, I knew I had to come back and I would go into old patterns of things that I have to do. Answer emails, look at my phone messages, send out bills, get involved with reaching out to people with prospecting. So you wouldn't expect, would you, to go away on vacation and then to come home and be in vacation mode for the rest of the year, unless of course you were retired, right? So you go away to do something new, like whether it be the Bahamas or Florida or Maine or wherever you go. You want to do something new, but then you come back and you come back to your old way of life. Like a couple weeks ago, we went to Ireland, and of course, you know, you're in Ireland, you're doing great things, traveling, being with great people, eating food, seeing sights, and then of course that comes to an end. And then once it comes to an end, then what you're going to do is you're going to do something new as far as look at your patterns. Because every time that I go away, I'm so aware of my life, you know, because when you're in your life, it's so close to you that it's hard to see the forest from the trees. It really is. But when you go away and then you come back, there's something about seeing things through new eyes, new lenses. So I said this a couple months ago, and I always say it when I do my lecture called The Importance of Focus. We have about 45 to 65,000 thoughts every single day. Let that sink in. About 45 to 65,000 thoughts every single day. And 90% of what we're thinking, we are repeating the next day. People who study this say that what we think and what we say and what we do is very habitual. Like 50% of our life is on autopilot, which is good. We're not thinking about brushing our teeth. We're not thinking about driving to work. We're not thinking about doing certain things that it's just automatic. And that's a great thing, because we would burn out our energy if we had to think about every single thing that we were doing. The other side of the coin is this, that if we want to evolve, or we want to flourish, or we want to grow, we want to reach our potential in certain areas like relationships or money or career, we must do things differently. We must get out of our comfort zone. And the only way to do that is to focus on things that are new. Now, one of the reasons I take people on trips is because I want them to get this, not just listening to me, but actually going to Israel or going to Ireland or going to Italy or going to Scotland or anything like that, so that they can see how other people operate. Got to tell you a funny story. So we go to Ireland, and the first day we had a down day so that we could see Dublin, and the next day we had a guided tour in Dublin. So we're inside of St. Patrick's Cathedral, and the world isn't the same, right? The world, you know, there's different customs. You know, you go overseas, people do things a little differently. So in Ireland, in St. Patrick's Cathedral, you walk over to the wash area, the washroom or the bathroom, right? And it's unisex. Like, in other words, you walk into this shared space, it's like one room, and then out of that is these stalls, and it's open to everyone. In other words, there's not a bathroom for males and there's not a bathroom for females. It's a washroom, it's a bathroom, and as you walk in, there's a shared sink. And then out of that, there are different stalls. And if you're a female or you're a male, you just use it. So I was coming out of the bathroom and some of the people on my tour were coming in and they turned around like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I said, no, don't be sorry. This is a new thing. You know, this is how people do things. They do it a little differently. So that's why I love the metaphor of travel. I love the fact that people can get away and they recognize that their patterns, they're running on an automatic loop, you know, and then when you break that pattern and you travel, I mean, especially if you go to the Middle East, I mean, you see things in the Middle East, you think, wow, they definitely think differently. So when I think of old patterns, the other metaphor that I think of is a rocket, like a rocket ship from Florida trying to get out of the gravitational pull of the Earth. There's a lot of energy there, a lot of energy to try to get out of the gravitational pull of a rocket. But once it gets out, things change. And the reason why we're talking about new more than once here is because I think we need to hear this. I think we need to recognize that just hearing something just one time, or going to a seminar, or going and listening to a speaker, or reading a book, or watching a podcast, or taking a class, while all of that stuff is good, we need to recognize that repetition is the mother of skill. It really is. That if we want our life to be different, we need to do different things. Now, I think the reason why we don't is because it's really comfortable. You know, I just turned 60. It's really comfortable just to stay home. It's really comfortable, you know, not to organize these trips, you know, not to do it. I've been all over the world. I've seen a lot of places. There's a couple places I want to see. But when you recognize that your growth comes from doing new things, that's when you tend to push yourself out of your comfort zone and do them. This last trip, we took people to Europe. They've never been to Europe before. They've never flown from Connecticut over to Ireland. They've never done it. It was the first experience. So for some people, it was kind of scary. You know, what would that be like? Now, we're not going to a place like Italy, where maybe, you know, you won't be able to understand them, or Greece, or some other places that I've been in my last career for the last 10 years or so in travel. It's in the process of uncertainty, it's in the process of being outside of your comfort zone that's where you will grow the most. Meeting new people, making phone calls. If you talk to business people, salespeople, it's probably the thing that they are ignoring the most. Picking up the phone and making the phone call. What's the person going to say? I don't know. What are you going to say? I don't know. Is it going to be perfect? I don't know. How is it going to turn out? I don't know. But it's probably going to be better or different than the last phone call you made. So I do a lot of training with folks as far as sales training. Most salespeople, they kind of resist the phone. They resist the follow-up. They don't like to hear, you know, people saying no to them. But I always say some will, some won't, so what? You know, who's next? There's never, ever a shortage of suspects or prospects. And I think the reason why most people don't want to do it is because they are afraid of the unknown, or they're afraid of what's new. Now, in my lecture, I do this lecture called The Importance of Focus. One of the things I talk about is the conscious mind is easily distracted. So if you were to try to sit down and get really focused using your willpower and your willpower alone, you'll probably be frustrated. And it's very difficult. I've read a lot of books on focus. I've read a lot of books on distraction, how not to be distracted. And a lot of people will say things like, you know, just make sure that your office area is clean. Make sure you haven't had a lot of caffeine, that your diet is really healthy, that you got a good night's sleep. Maybe listen to music, get out in nature, exercise. They talk about all of these things that can help you be focused and disciplined or motivated to do what you need to do. Problem is, the conscious mind easily gets distracted. You know, people are on webinars and they're checking their email. People are on webinars, they're checking their phone. People are driving, they're checking their phone. People are multitasking, they're doing all these kinds of things. It's not helpful because the conscious mind is easily distracted. The other thing that I talk about in my lecture is that the other than conscious mind is already programmed. So if you listen to my lecture, maybe you've been to my lecture, maybe you're listening to this as a follow-up, or maybe this is new to you. What I talk about is it's easy to get focused. Anybody can get focused. It's not that difficult. The trick is getting and staying focused. And what is it about the people that get and stay focused that makes them succeed? Where most people, they get focused, maybe they come back from a seminar, they read a book, they listen to something, and then Monday morning they go right back into their patterns. You know, like getting back from a trip on vacation, you go right back to where you were before. That's what most people do. So what's the secret? The secret is to recognize that the conscious mind is easily distracted and that the other than conscious mind is already programmed. So most of the things that we're thinking, most of the things that we're saying, most of the things that we're doing, we are on autopilot. You know, from our childhood, from first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh grade, eighth grade, whatever it is, up to 8 years old maybe, 9 years old. A lot of our beliefs and a lot of our patterns are based simply in our unconscious. Here's the thing, we are not even aware of them. And because we're not aware of them, they tend to control us. So if you want to flourish, if you want to grow, how do you know that you're doing it? You're doing something new. You're doing something new, and here are the areas. Your finance. If you're always in debt, you're always in the red, you're always struggling with money, then doing something new would feel uncomfortable. And that could be, you know, having an extra $5,000 in the bank, or an extra $10,000 in the bank, or $1,000 or $100,000 in the bank. You'd say, Greg, I've never had that kind of money. Okay, now we're getting somewhere, right? Or you could say, you know, all of my relationships they've been disasters. You know, it's like they start off great for a week and then it's a nosedive. Or you've been married once or twice and it hasn't worked and you're like, I can't even imagine a happy, fulfilling relationship. Of course, it would have to be new. Or your weight or your health. You're like, oh, I'm always tired. I'm always physically struggling. I'm overweight. Well, what would the new thing be? The new thing would be being in shape. Or maybe your attitude or your emotions. You say, well, I don't really think this is going to work. Well, that's what you've always thought. I don't see this being a good thing. Oh, maybe that's the way you've been thinking. My point in saying this is, it's the other than conscious mind that is driving your patterns, my patterns, your patterns. And as much as we try to change and to have something new, what we really value is being comfortable. We want to be comfortable. It's like, okay, I want to do this, but I really want to be comfortable. I don't want to take a risk. I don't want to do anything that's going to make me look bad or embarrass me, or I might fail. This is the thing that holds us back. You know, I've read books on, you know, death and dying, and, you know, what people say in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, you know, when they're taking their last breath. There was a minister that did a survey asking people in their 80s and 90s, what they would do differently. And it's a wonderful book. At the top of my mind, I can't think of the book. But what he said was, most people regret not what they did. What they regretted is what they didn't do. You know? I mean, I can't tell you. I've had friends of mine and people that I know that say, someday I'm going to go to Ireland with you, or someday I'm going to go to Israel with you. And this is not a sales plug or a plug or a sales pitch. People that I've known that said, someday I'm going to do this, and they're no longer here. I know, well, I don't want to get into names, but there's a few people that I know that I can count on one hand that have said, you know, I would love to go with you to Italy someday. It's my dream. It's on my bucket list. And I was at their funeral. So all I'm saying is, I think the thing that holds us back the most, it's our comfort zone. We say we want all of these things, but in reality, what holds us back is these familiar patterns. And these familiar patterns, for the most part, are unaware. We're unaware of them. That's why I call them other than conscious. You know, if we were aware of them, we would see them. Now, at this point, I would normally play a commercial. And I'm looking at my, my board here. For some reason, it's not showing up. So that's okay. Let me put in a commercial. I have an ebook that I wrote.
You've been listening to the Great
Oh, there we go.
Brought to you by motivational speaker.
That's my friend Peter.
On buildingfortunesradio.com. Do you wish you could sharpen your focus on what matters most to you and achieve more? Then you owe it to yourself to read Greg's ebook at greatdwyerebook.com. That's www.greatdwyerebook.com. Download it today and give it away. As always, we want to thank you for listening to the Great Dwyer Radio Show on Building Fortunes Radio with motivational speaker Greg Dwyer. Now back to our show. Take it away, Greg.
Well, that was really nice. That was my friend Peter Mingles. He's listening in the background. What great customer service.
Listening and learning.
What's that?
Listening and learning.
Well, thank you, Peter. I appreciate it. Hey, listen, if you guys need any leads or you need any business coaching as far as sales, Peter Mingles, check him out. All right, so let's get back to this. What I'm talking about is the patterns that hold us back. So I came across something this week that's really exciting. It's a book that I'm reading. The name of the book is called When the Past is Present. When the Past is Present. The gentleman's name is David Rico. And I'm probably like about 100 pages into the book. And what he's talking about is this one thing that holds us back. And it's tied to relationships. It really is tied to relationships. But as I'm reading this, I'm thinking to myself, we could apply this to anything. So the name of the book is When the Past is Present. And what he's saying is, most of our relationships have to do with transference. Now, I've heard this years ago. When I went to graduate school, I remember my professor saying, on the honeymoon night of the wedding, the husband and wife are in bed, and there's two other people with the wife and two other people with the husband. I'm thinking, what are you talking about? He said, transference. And he says it's the husband's mom, the husband's dad, the wife's mom, the wife's dad. And I thought, well, okay, I kind of get that. You know, that we are attracted to certain people because of our childhood experiences. Now, the word transference really came about in a relationship of counseling. So you have a counselor, and then you have somebody coming in as a patient or a client, or you have a coach. You have somebody that's helping you, and then that person tends to really like you, especially if there's rapport. And a lot of times what there is transference. In other words, the relationship between the therapist and the patient, or the coach and the client, if the relationship's really tight and there's a lot of rapport there, sometimes there's transference, meaning that the person, whether male or female, is looking at the counselor or coach as their mother that they never had, or their father that they never had, or some family member that they never had. Now here's the thing, they're unconscious about it. They're not aware of it. It's like there's two reactions. One is complete attraction, and the other one is being repelled by a person. Like, I really, really don't like that person. Like, that person really, they really trigger me. And then as you read this book, and I highly recommend this, When the Past is Present, is he's saying that these people that tend to make you react this way, like really attracted to or repelled by, it's possible that they are a mirror of someone from your past. Your father, your mother, someone that you really wanted approval from, and you're not aware of it. So what happens is, now you've probably seen this before, you've heard of this. A person, maybe a male or female, they marry somebody that's an alcoholic, and then they get divorced or they break up, and then they're by themselves for a while, then they get with somebody else, and that person tends to be an alcoholic, and they're wondering, then they go into therapy and they find out, well, my dad was an alcoholic, or a mom was an alcoholic, or my father was never there for me. And you know what? I met this person that was there for me. And then guess what happened? They weren't there for me. And what Rico is saying is that not only do we want to be comfortable, we want to play out our drama over and over and over and over and over like Groundhog Day. And we tend to pick people in our life that fill the roles of people in our childhood. He mentions the word importance. Now, I talk about the importance of focus. I've said this for years. Focus has to be important. But what Rico showed me, and what I learned from him, is that the word importance means to take from the past. The word to port, like to carry. People order things from China and they come to the port, they're transferred over, or they're brought over, that sort of thing. So what he's saying is that when we find someone in our life, a lover, a friend, a business partner, a spouse, anything like that, there tends to be importance because they have played a role in our past life. Now, I'm not talking about past lives like you were, Henry VIII. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about first year, second year of life, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. And what we do is we gravitate people into our life that are playing the same roles over and over and over again. Now, this is fascinating. Fascinating. Whether you're married, single, whether you're with someone, you're not with someone, you might have friends. This is all related to transference. And then I thought to myself, could this apply to your finances? And I think, yeah, why not? Could this apply to your business? Yeah, why not? Could this apply to your health? Could this apply to your emotional stability? Yeah, why not? It's not only, in my mind, a relationship with other people, it's a relationship with you with other things. And so I encourage you to pick up this book, When the Past Becomes Present, and recognize that if you're struggling, like if you're taking 4 or 5 steps forward and a couple steps back and you're not making progress, the answer might be because there's kind of some secondary gains here. Not only do you want to feel comfortable, you also want to watch the rerun of your life over and over again because it's familiar. It's familiar. I mean, today's Mother's Day. The word family, the word familiar, deja vu. You remind me of something. You're like my soulmate. I can't get away from you. I can't get enough of you. Who do you remind me of? Hey, can that show up in your business? Absolutely, because business is relationships. It's providing services for people. It's helping people. It's, being of service to people. And as I was reading this book, I thought to myself, this is everywhere. In the sense that it shows up in our life, it repeats in our relationship with money, our weight, our health, our emotional life, transference. So if you find yourself struggling and going back to old patterns, I think awareness is the answer. We hear the word beware, like beware. Well, I really think it comes down to being aware of how we're living out our life. And here's one piece of advice that I can throw out, or maybe a challenge. The one thing that really has helped me is that I journal. So every day I write down 5 things that I'm grateful for. I've been doing this since 2009. It was Jack Canfield that introduced me to this. So from 2009 to 2023, I have these journals. I have them stacked up in my office. So every single day I write down 5 things that I'm grateful for. In addition to that, I'm leaving behind a record of my patterns, of the people I'm spending time with, my money, my finances, my career, my business, my relationships with people, so that if I were to sit down at the end of the year and just look through the book, maybe it'd take an hour or so, I can start seeing patterns. And as you step out of this and you look at 5 years, imagine having 5 years of your thoughts. I'm saying you're writing paragraphs. I'm saying you're just writing down things that you're grateful for. And you're looking at it and you're saying, I see why I'm not doing what I say I want to do, because I'm running patterns. I'm associating with people that maybe I shouldn't be. Maybe there's a reason why I'm associating with these people or that situation. And you start seeing your patterns, because let's face it, life goes by so quick. I just turned 60. Before you know it, I'll be 65. Before you know it, I'll be 70. And when you have the gift of your history, of looking back 5 years or 3 years or 10 years, you start to see why you're doing what you're doing. And you see the patterns. And a lot of it, I can see it in my life, it is transference. It is romanticizing my childhood and then picking people in my life that fulfills those roles. And at the same time saying, yeah, I want something different. Well, that's kind of insanity. But what breaks the spell is being aware of it, of recognizing that the conscious mind is probably not going to help you because it's easily distracted. The other than conscious mind is running these patterns. And once we get really clear on what we want and we know it's got to be new, then we can be aware of it. And once we become aware of it, we can change them. So I have an ebook. I would love to have you read it. It used to be a lead magnet, meaning you used to put in your email. I don't even do that anymore. So it's www.gregdwyerebook.com. It's free. There's no obligation. In other words, I'm not going to get your email. I'm not going to get your name. I'm not going to get your telephone number. I don't need it. It's free. No strings attached. So all you have to do is go to www.gregdwyerebook.com, click on it. It's 12 pages. It'll help you start thinking in this area of things being new. And I hope you do it. And as far as new, next year we're going to Scotland, April 3rd. If you'd like to get out of the country, if you'd like to be on a retreat with me and a small group of people, send me an email at greg@gregdwyer.com. I'm looking at the time. I'm trusting that my friend Peter Mingles is there. I think he is. He's going to play the outro.
Yep.
Thanks, Peter.
Perfect. Hey, you're welcome. Well, happy Mother's Day.
You too.
Learn a lot as usual.
Thanks, Peter.
Bye.
Bye.